marry me?
It was like an out-of-body experience.
Says to me, cyclone, one more time.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
This is happening in real
I
life.
felt so happy. Tell me something I don't know,
It
Dad.
really surprises you.
Absolutely. Well, I can see you're welcome back.
I want to get married in 6 months.
This is true love. I think this happens every day.
Welcome to Dear Future Bride. Today's guest is Zoe. Zoe is a trained chef who knows how to bring a vision to life. She poured herself into planning a wedding that was bold, elegant, and anything but ordinary. She married her partner Angus in Byron Bay, featuring a performance from the Australian Ballet Company, a double Magnum champagne service, and a black tie celebration that set a new standard for what a Byron Bay wedding can look like. This episode is about the pressure that builds behind the scenes, the moments you'll never forget, and the things you'd absolutely do differently now that it's all over. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
So I'm going to get straight into it. What was the most stressful thing that happened during your planning?
Well, oh my gosh, I think it would have to be the cyclone hitting a week before. Something that is completely out of your control, as per usual. Honestly, we were lucky to have you and the team help us with every other detail. It's always those things that just come out of nowhere. What I think about the last 12 weeks leading up to the wedding was like the cyclone and then one of the venues for our recovery counselling. I mean, gosh, there was definitely a few we can get stuck into.
And so with the cyclone, obviously that's not something that anybody prepares for. It was all outdoors. It was at this beautiful hinterland venue. Everything outdoors was Sperry tents and the whole thing. And I was like, there's no way. On that Monday, I was like, hey, just checking in. You're like, we're doing it. We're still doing it. Obviously, there was a lot of weddings that cancelled that weekend prior. And so what was your mindset that week leading up to yours? Was it just delusion, or were you like...
You know what? Definitely a bit of delusion, right? Because you're starving, you're exhausted. And for me, I was working right up to the day. So we flew to Byron on the Wednesday. We were getting married on the Friday. And I was working up until then. And the week before was even worse because that weekend that you're talking about now, being in the office the Thursday, Friday before that, everyone's like, aren't you getting married in Byron Bay next week? Like, isn't it underwater? I heard there's no electricity. And I was like, my God, if somebody says to me, cyclone one more time, I'm actually going to fall apart. Honestly, yeah, the combination of stress and, I mean, I'm lucky because Angus is always this like stable, calm, cool, collected. It's not until afterwards, once it was all fine, that he was like, no, I was absolutely trying to hold it together, thinking that everything was going to crash down because I was like mental breakdown, crying, running out of the office. I was like, I can't talk about it anymore. Yeah, honestly, like it was kind of silence because it happened so quickly that it was kind of, don't say anything. It's going to be fine. The cyclone's not going to be that bad. Mum kept being like, it's going to hockey stick back up to Queensland. Like, it's going to be fine. And so I was like, silence. None of my best friends are texting me at this point. None of my bridesmaids who have flown in from London and Tokyo and all of this stuff, they're like, no, it's fine. We're not going to talk about it. So, I mean, because even if it had hit, the worst was that it kept delaying. So it was like, just hit already, it was like taking its time at sea to come in. I'm like, just get it over and done with. Once it hits, it'll be over. But it just kept delaying. So I thought there's no way, because even if it hits and then the aftermath is the problem, right? Like you said, we're in the hinterland. It was all outside. So was the marquee pad going to be turned into complete smush, like mud, and they're not going to be able to pin down the marquee? Or where our ceremony was in that canopy of trees near the old chapel, like that was all gravel. So I remember when we went for the rehearsal the day before and the team's all there like trying to pack down the gravel and pack down everything. They're like, it's going to be fine. That was my main concern, was like, even if it hits late, the aftermath, like there's no way we're going to go through with it. But then I think everybody was just kind of crossing their fingers and toes and hoping for the best, and it worked.
It worked.
Thank God.
The weather turned it on. It was just like you would have never known that a cyclone was passing through.
I know. Honestly.
luck.
I know. And so my godmother, Sally, lives up there and was hosting our dinner the night before, which was super casual, but still, 30, 35 people. And she was like calling my mum throughout the week. And she's saying, we still don't have electricity. What are we going to do? What if I can't host it? Da, 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 da. So it was just like, as soon as it turned back on, I mean, when we arrived on the Wednesday morning, it was like nothing had happened. It was like, what cyclone? So
And
lucky.
the relief that would have gone through your body would have just been like, it's happening, we're doing it, it's
I know.
real.
I know. We had so many people traveling for it as well, right? Because we're Sydney based, but we had people traveling from all over, from Melbourne internationally. So I was just thinking, oh my goodness, if this has to be cancelled the week before, the amount of people that are just going to lose, the guilt kicks in and you're like, oh my God. Yeah, exactly. The logistics of it all. So,
And I guess that's where the
on.
delusion kicks in and you're just like, it's happening, the guilt that you get of everybody else attending your wedding and all the accommodation and plans that people put in place to then have to have the week beforehand move everything. And so I found that especially through COVID, it was like there was no other option, whereas you had the option still. And it's like, when do you make the call to cost everyone money and all of the money that you spent as well? Because your wedding was like,
I know,
wild.
Yeah,
and
wild.
even the Australian Ballet Company, you're like, but the ballerinas.
I know. Oh my God, the ballerinas.
Through the planning, did you find that you had any family members try and get too involved, that you had to kind of step in? Anything in particular? Did you have to stand your ground with anything, or did you give in to certain requests just to keep the peace?
Probably a mixture of both. Overall, we were pretty lucky in that our parents were really supportive and my dad in particular was very much like, this is your day. This is about you and Angus. It's your wedding. Parents contribute in different ways. And he was very much like, basically within reason, do what you want to do. There's a lot of moving parts. Both of Angus and I have parents that have different partners now. So there's a lot of voices, like double the norm. And so it was just kind of a balancing act. We had, some of the parents that are like, what do you mean you're spending this amount on florals? Like, there's no way. And then Angus would keep reminding all of the parents, trust us on the day of how we've built out the budget. We've agreed this at the start. Trust us on how we're going to use it, because it'll make it, 10 times better. There's certain things that work. So, different people have different things. One parent was like really stuck on the florals and was like, absolutely not. There's no way, My parents were very much, you need a videographer. Come on, it's going to be amazing. So that was one thing we kind of came around to. And in the long run, it was great. And I think the planning process goes for so long, even though it goes like in an instant, it's a year, right? That you're kind of putting together this big day. And so at different times, people are going to be stressed about different things in their own lives and, circumstances change for better, for worse, but eventually on the day, you just know your family and the voices that are telling you all these different things are going to have the best time. So there was nothing catastrophic, but certainly there was a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
Was there anything that you were really glad that you didn't compromise on?
I compromised with Angus on the Sperry tent. I wanted the draping and the clear marquee. I'm glad I did compromise on that. Yeah, again, the florals and the stationery were two things that were a must for us, because they're the things that kind of made each moment so special. We had this massive verve and sunflower bar, which to Angus and I was the story of our engagement and, our favorite things, and meant so much to us. So pushing back on the florals was a big thing for me, because I was like, it's bringing together a story of who we are. We're not bringing in, different furniture elements that are, particularly unusual or doing anything out of the ordinary from that side of things. We just wanted something simple that was going to be used but effective. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't compromise on that for sure.
Did anything blow out the budget more than you expected?
Everything. What budget?
I find with a lot of couples, they come into it and they just pick a figure out of nowhere, just like, that's our budget. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. And then I start to break it down and itemize it. And I'm like, catering, flowers, photography, hair and makeup,
Yeah.
celebrate, transport,
Yeah.
all the things. And it's not like everything's outrageously priced. Some is, but it's just that when you add it all up, it's like, oh my God. And with your venue, you had to bring everything in. So structures and catering tents and the whole thing. So at the beginning, were you one of those brides that just picked a budget, or were you just like, I don't have a budget, let's just go all in and have the best day?
Yeah. Do you know what we were really lucky with is my sister has been in events for a long time and executing weddings as well. She had the experience with similar weddings, again, very different. Like you said, Byron is different. The requirements are different. So there was only so much she could kind of help us with. What she could help us with, which kind of outlining the initial budget was great. There was just kind of additional things that you don't really think about, you know, when you're discussing it. And I think it changes with every family as well. So, you know, you kind of have to work with whoever, you know, is going to be contributing and understand and have really honest conversations up front. But yeah, we didn't pull it out of thin air, I wouldn't say, but we had kind of somewhat of what we thought were educated guesses. And funnily enough, towards the end of it, my dad was like, I always allowed for an extra, you know, whatever it was, 15% or 10%. He was like, it's just the way it goes. And that, you know, ended up being true for us. I mean, the catering was probably one for us that we actually all agreed that was one thing that was so important to us, you know, with my background and passion for cooking. You know, that's kind of our love language. We host all the time. I've got 10 people coming over for dinner tonight. You know, it's just kind of what we do. And so for me, I was actually, that's one thing I didn't compromise on. You know, Angus's parents are quite traditional, and so they had assumed that we would do sort of sit down, entree, main, dessert, cake, and have kind of this long sit down dinner, I suppose. But that wasn't something that we wanted. And we really held firm on that. So doing the 2-hour cocktail, you know, sort of sunset time and then moving into the marquee, that was probably one of the best things that our guests had told us made the event really special too, because you get to mingle up front and talk about the ceremony and, you know, share stories and all hang out in a relaxed environment before the formalities start. Catering was one thing that blew out the budget more than we had anticipated from the start, but it was something that was really important to us. So, you know, something's got to give.
As a chef, was it hard stepping back and trusting someone else with the food?
I mean, chef is probably a bit generous. You know, I'm not working in the industry at the moment, but yes, definitely. I like to have control in the kitchen as well, which is a bit of a problem. I mean, it's not a problem for Angus because he's like, this is great. You know, I don't have to do anything every night. But 100% kind of trying to communicate your vision of what you want. The tasting was the best thing ever, both of them, because if we hadn't had the first one, we wouldn't have refined and then gone to the second one, which was light years beyond and beat all of our expectations and was so much more in line with the vibe, but also the style and the presentation, all of that. It just exceeded all of our expectations. So I think it's important for the elements that mean the most to you. Catering was a huge one for us. I'm somebody who, if I go to a restaurant and something's not quite as good, I would never put my hand up to a waiter and be like, this tastes really bad. You know, I would just eat it and suffer in silence. But for me, I was like, I guess we just have to say something. We have to muster up the courage, which is so funny because for you, I'm sure you're like, oh my God, please say everything. Be honest. Like we want to make it perfect, right? So I think for me, when, you know, talking to future brides, it's just like you'll have the things that mean the most to you. And if they don't hit the mark, that's exactly why you have a trial. So giving all of that feedback, and we were so detailed in our feedback as well. This is what we want. This is what we don't want. This is how we want it presented. How can you cook it? How can you know, how can we refine it? We like the produce is amazing, but how can we elevate it? You know, so thinking about the things that you actually want, whoever you're working with, caterers, they work with so many different palettes. You just have to be really specific.
And with your feedback, did it pay off in the end on the wedding day itself?
Big time. That was one of the biggest compliments we got on the whole day was the catering. We were lucky because we had the recovery the next day. So everybody rocked up and was just saying, oh my gosh, the food, not only was it in abundance, but every single thing that people ate just brought them joy. And that's what we like to do as a couple. So it was perfect.
I speak to a lot of couples and I guess going into wedding planning, when certain vendors, for example, with catering, set menus for you to choose from, they think that's the only option if they're going with that particular caterer or a certain package from a photographer. Those are the set things. And so because you don't know what you don't know, you're going into it quite blind. People don't feel like they can speak up and say, hey, this is what we like. This is what we do as a couple. This is how we want it to feel and look and taste and whatever. It's so important for people to know that they have choice. And while there's set packages in place, vendors love customizing things to suit. And we have these packages. So for the couples that don't really care too much and they're just happy with something that's pre-done for them and they just want to power through the planning, that's for them. And the majority are happy with that. But we do get quite a few couples that go, can I do something completely different? And then us as vendors, we're like, hell yeah, you can, because we do this all the time and it gets quite monotonous. And so when you have couples like you going, I want to bring this vibe into it, and they get to cook a menu that is so different to what they do every day and nail it. So for the couples that feel like they can't speak up, if it's, as you said, on those important parts, if it really means something to you, it's so important just to say it. And they can say no and you can explore other options, but most of them will say, yeah, let's do it.
100%. I think that's probably a stigma that I had though in my mind was, you talk to different suppliers, different vendors, and the packages in the industry, they feel like they're kind of pigeonholing you in and you don't know that there's something custom, I mean, when we met with Chef Shay and he was like, this is the dream. I was like, oh my God, is it? Like I thought that I was being so difficult and causing more issues and complications for the catering team. Like I thought it was going to be a burden. So that's why I shied away from it. I didn't even ask the question up front. We just were led by the packages in a way and just made selections without even asking. And so that was a big learning curve for me. It was like, can we do this? Can we do that? And, again, with Mikala from Wilderness Flowers, we were like 2 weeks out and I was like, could we just do a massive sunflower bar? She's like, yeah. Yes. And I was like, okay. So if you don't ask, you don't get, as cliche as that is. But not only do you not get, you just don't know what you're missing out on. Don't shy away from those questions that you think might be, oh, is it going to annoy? Is it going to be difficult? Just ask.
Yeah.
Find out.
And surround yourself with people that want what's best for you. So when we're having the conversations, letting you know that there's options out there, because some couples just are too shy or they don't want to cause any fuss, and surround yourself with a team that will move mountains for you through the planning and lead you in the right direction. So just speak up, and that's the most important. Was there anything that no one warned you about with wedding planning that you wish they did?
One thing that we didn't quite realize was even with a planner, nobody can make the decisions for you. You still have to do all of the decision making. I don't think we had anticipated. We kind of went into the wedding thinking this is going to be a breeze, and it was in so many ways, but there were so many elements to our day, as you know, and then we also had this recovery the next day. So for us, it was a lot of, okay, we've got to make these decisions and they take time. And so I think just preparing for the answers you're going to have to provide and setting time aside and making sure that you're doing it together.
It's decision fatigue. You're speaking to so many different people about so many different details and logistics, and you've got the support there, but you get bogged down with all of the details throughout the planning.
Yep.
And it's so important to take that step back and have time out from the planning, because it can just consume you for that full year and you can get so caught up in all of that. Did you end up feeling a little bit lost once the day was done?
I think we were so lucky. I mean, how many times can I say this? We were so lucky with the team and to work with you and everybody else. But it really was it was a pretty cruisy journey until 13 weeks out. And then 13 weeks out for us was where everything went kind of haywire. You know, they ruined my dress. I had to go to a new supplier. I had to pay 20% more for a different dress from a different designer to get an assistant dressmaker in, and then the venue for our recovery fell through, and then the 16-person house that we've got for our bridesmaids and groomsmen, that falls through, and then the cyclone hits and the photographer's cancelled, and all of these different things happen. And I think outside of that 13-week period, we were good. But because we had such a stressful lead up, at nobody's fault other than just it became a 10-car pile up on the highway. So for us, it was as soon as we got on that plane to Byron, it was like that is like the biggest exhale moment. And I think something I just reminded us both of why we wanted to do a destination wedding, because we wanted to get up there early and be with our best friends and fly up and have that time before the wedding to just completely decompress. At that point, there's nothing else you can do. What will be, will be. So we got on that plane. And then we really enjoyed our wedding. We just enjoyed it. We felt like guests of honor rather than party planners and decision makers. We just made the absolute most of it. And so then we had this massive recovery party the next day as well. And we just got to let loose. So afterwards, our relief was kind of from the moment we got on that plane, everything just became, all the wedding noise was quiet. But absolutely the following few weeks, the decompressing is unbelievable. And then you're kind of like, wait, I'm not going to get to do that again. No, bring it back. Bring back the pain. I'll take it again. So it's funny. It's like this, 2-part sort of pull of, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's over. But wow, what was I doing with my life before this?
As vendors from our side, we spend so much time with you guys, so much time. Like we had our meetings that ran so over, and I just loved speaking with you guys. No, in the best way possible, purely because I loved you guys and I really wanted to dive so deep in the details, and I just wanted that for you. Then it's over, and I'm like,
I know.
Where's Zoe? What is she doing? That's why I'm like on Instagram, just message you just randomly. You build this relationship. So from our side, we miss you just as much as you miss wedding planning as well. And, it's like a weird breakup.
I know.
Like in the most beautiful way.
Is. I know. It's so true. It is like that. And it is emotional as well, because there's nothing more personal than your as a couple, than your wedding day, and bringing your friends into that, and the people that you do hand choose the people that you work with. We met with several planners, in the process, and we met with people in Sydney, and we met with other people that were sort of Brisbane based, and then we met with you, and it was a no-brainer. And so, you go through that journey of really carefully picking and curating all of these people that, in our case, it was great because they'd worked together before, or, that relationship's already there, and you just build all that trust, and then a weekend and it's over.
And then what do you do? What have you done since then?
Angus has been very, very busy spending and booking our honeymoon.
So you didn't go straight on your honeymoon after your wedding. There's been a bit of a gap.
Yeah, so we stayed 5 nights in Byron after the wedding. We stayed at Ray's, which is really beautiful, but we were absolutely exhausted by the end of it. And a couple of our friends had said to us, we went on our honeymoon straight away. We got on the plane at 5 a.m. and went to Fiji. And then they got there and they got sick because their bodies had just caught up to all of the stress and the crazy running around and the lack of sleep and all that kind of things, which is really common, right? When people go on holiday, they actually do kind of come down with a flu just for a couple of days, nothing serious, but your body's just like, whoa, you can take a second to realize how you're feeling. And so for us, we wanted to do a big honeymoon and something that we'd do before we'd have children. For us, we're going to Africa, and we're going to Mauritius, and we're going into the desert and going to Dubai, doing all these like kind of crazy, quirky things, which we're so excited for. But oh my gosh, if you had seen us at Ray's, we were just like shells of human beings. There's no way that we would have made it.
What's the one piece of advice you would give yourself if you could go back and do it from the start again, that will help brides out there know what they're getting into?
Such a good question. Think God advice. I'm like, am I even qualified to do that?
You are
I
so
would.
qualified to do that.
Honestly, I think you've just have to, it's nothing shocking, but honestly, you just have to trust your gut. And I think you've got to surround yourself with the right people and the people that are going to keep you calm. For us, one of the biggest things that went wrong was probably the recovery house that we had, that was originally booked for 9 months in advance, and was also the accommodation of where we were staying. Just with the contracts that you receive, just get somebody else to read over them as well. There was just one clause that I thought would just sort of be a standard term. My sister was like, I wish you'd shared it with me. I would have gotten them to remove it. And you just don't think, because you're so excited. So you have to, trust your instincts in what you're doing and what you're choosing, but just have that second person or third person, whether it's a parent, probably not going to be a parent because you kind of just want to keep them at arm's length. But whether you've got a sibling or a girlfriend or your boss or friend at work, someone to just read it and be like, that sounds a bit unusual, don't you think? And just have that sounding board, because there's little things like that, you might miss in the midst of working like crazy hours before the wedding so you can completely shut off, that you just miss things. So I've seen so many contracts in my work, and termination clauses are very common. Most people don't screw you over in business. In our case, they did. And there was several other couples that had been through the same thing. And it's funny because I left a massive Google review and I'm getting all of these people liking it and being like, oh my gosh, this happened to me with them too. And so I think it's just about, also sharing with the community experiences like that, where hopefully listening to this, somebody's going to say, let's just double check that contract again before we sign it, because termination clauses are so significant. We engaged our solicitor and he was like, oh my gosh, you won't believe it, but we're suing him for something else in a different country. And he was like, we can sue him, but it'll cost you in legal fees what you've paid the deposit, and they're giving you your money back, fortunately. So, much for muchness, but just read your contracts.
What's one moment you did not expect to love as much as you did?
So hard. There were
All
so
of
many
it.
good moments. I know.
Tell me about the Australian ballet performance. How
Oh my
did that
gosh.
all come about? This performance was part of their upcoming tour performances that hasn't been revealed yet. And so it was very private. It was very hush-hush. We cannot post any of this online. So tell me, how did that all come about and how was it on the day?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, in terms of moments we loved, that was massive for us. We kind of expected to love it, but I mean, how much more beautiful can you get than the Australian Ballet? They're so prestigious and they have some of the best talent in the world, right? So, I mean, it came about because of Angus's family's involvement with them. So for many, many years, his grandparents were part of, I think, from when they were becoming founders, or I can't remember the exact connection, but major beneficiaries, and really believed in the arts, and it's a huge part of their family. And so with his grandparents not being with us anymore, we both wanted to honor our grandparents in different ways. So we spoke to them and they said, absolutely. I mean, there was a bit of negotiating there as per usual, but we were fortunate enough to get 2 ballerinas. They are now performing that all around the country. So it's called Pas de Deux, I think. And it's a love piece between a husband and a wife. It went for about 5 minutes. Really, really beautiful. She was dressed in white. He was dressed in this beautiful penguin suit. And it was just perfect. With your help, gotten all of the lighting right. The space was big enough. The music was great. It was really, really special. Really, really special. So there was a very small group of people that knew myself, Angus's mum, and my mum. So everybody else was in the dark. And so on the night, Julian, our MC, did the intro, and everyone just kind of like turns around, sitting in their seats, and sees them coming in. Music starts playing, and it was just so special. And they performed incredibly well, because they're obviously still in training. Like you said, the performance hasn't gone live yet, which is why we couldn't post it on social media or anything. But Kenneth from the ballet said to us, because they recorded it privately, and he said they just every single, not that you'd know, right, to the untrained eye, but he was just saying every single dance move. I mean, I don't even know what the language is, right? Like every single move, every single throw in the air, every single landing, everything, they just nailed it. So it all came together, and they really enjoyed it as well. You know, they're performers. So for them, they're usually in a massive crowd and it's black and they can't see anything. During the performance, they were just so happy, and they said it was so special to them as well, because they just, you know, they'd look out at 120 guests that are all just sobbing like and in shock and just like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. So they get to feel that as well. But honestly, the other moment that comes to mind is probably when we got in the buggy and got taken up into the hinterland and just had that private moment, the two of us. It was just so good. Did you hear about the guy that ran the margarita up?
No.
Did you hear? Oh my gosh. I have never in my life felt, I can't even describe the feeling. So we get in this buggy, right? And Joe's driving it, the owner of the property, and we get in, and our photographer and videographer are in there as well. And Angus and I are sitting in the tray with our little bottle of champagne. And as they were kind of hustling us over to the buggy, this beautiful, such a sweet guy. He was like really making sure that the whole night, I think I was like his target for the night. He's like, oh, what do you want to drink? And I was like, oh, I'm going on the buggy, but I'll take a margarita. Anyway, 1, 2, skip a few. We're getting pushed out the door, and Angus just like grabs a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. And I said to my sister, I was like, just tell them not to worry. She was like, okay, when he gets here, I'll drink it. I was like, okay, perfect. And so we get in the buggy and we drive away, and we go through past the house, so probably 200 meters. Then we take a right, go another 100 meters. We go through the first like cattle gate. Then we go through another cattle gate. Then we drive another probably 500 meters uphill, right? So hinterland, hilly, very hilly. We're looking down at the marquee, which looks miles away. And we're in the middle of our sort of like couples sunset photo shoot. We'd probably been up there for, I don't know, 15 minutes. And then over the top of the mountain comes this guy carrying 2 margaritas, dripping in sweat, like dripping head to toe, face like redder than you've ever seen in your life. And he's just running with them in here. In the air, and he's like, I've got your margaritas. And I was like, oh my God, my videographer turns and he's like, who is that? Thought it was a mass murderer coming over the hills, right? Like running with his stuff. And Angus and I cannot control ourselves. We're just like, this guy has carried 2 margaritas kilometers uphill. It's 28 degrees. He's in the weeds. He's gone through barbed wired fences to get here. Oh my gosh. That was honestly one of the pinnacles of the day. We just like, what kind of royalty do we think we are? This poor guy. And I said to my sister when we got down, I said, did you not tell him? She was like, yeah, I did. I told him. And off he went. He just went for it. Oh my God, what a legend.
The service, though.
Honestly,
we'll send him some margaritas.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God.
Oh, well, you know,
So
they go
awesome.
above and beyond.
Like icon energy. That guy deserves a raise. I hope he owns the business.
That's what you need on your wedding day. Somebody to run miles uphill for you with a margarita. If you don't have that one day where that's how you get treated, you know.
Totally. That's the level of service you expect, ladies.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. It will be so valuable to everybody listening, and I just adore you. So thank you.
You too. Of course. So good. So good to catch up.